I've got to get, they don't put the Zoom on till 5 minutes before this year. They used to put it on earlier, so now it's a lot more problematic.
I went quick. We were done very quickly today.
Okay.
But there was no break at the Gustavo.
30-second break.
Learning sponsors, a year of learning, Martin Lippman and family in memory of his wife, Malka Chana Bat Pinchas, the friends of Herb Jeremias, Tzvi Ben Zev, friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel Ben Yaakov, friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir, Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliyahu Ben Yosef Kohen. Those who were inspired by our Rebbetzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Esther Malkabat, Meshulam Yisachar, Gail and Leslie Kaplan in memory of their parents, Mushka Sprinza Bat Yosef Chaim Bechava, Hanan Ben Moshe Eliezer Vechana, Pesha Bat Shmuel Yitzchak Halevi V'Tzipora, Isser Ben Yoel Moshe HaKohen Vechana. Rexford Friends of Gladys Sherman, Gutta Bat Meir, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim, Marsha Bronner in memory of her husband, Arav Yerachmiel Ben Shmuel, friends and family of Arthur Ritholtz, Mordechai Yudel Ben Baruch Leib HaKohen. A month of learning by Charlie Gelfenstein in memory of his mother, Dacia Gittel Bat Meir Halevi. Also Charlie Gelfenstein in memory of his father, Meir Ben Yaakov. Ruvain and Susan Podolsky in memory of his mother, Fredel Bat Shraga Feivel. B. Pizer in memory of her sister, Rivka Bat Avram Michal Halevi. We don't have any weeks of learning but we do have a day of learning. Today is the 3rd of December. Rabbi Dr. Moshe Kranzler in memory of his brother, Arav Yecheskel David Ben Yerachmiel, also David and Henna Grunblatt in memory of his father, Arav Avram Yosef Ben Yitzchak Meir Halevi. Neshamas have an aliyah, Krank Rafia Velti Yeshua Shamatwiyah, B'nai Yisrael, a good gebench.
Amen.
Okay. 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 They stopped yesterday in Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph, with the Mishnah. Okay, so that's where I'm going to pick up. All right. Okay, I will again make an effort to do the Gemara the best I am able. And those who are able to contribute. Where's Avrami this morning? He's not here?
He went to AC.
Oh, he went to
There was a patira in AC.
Yes, I know. His brother. It was his twin brother.
So he went
Yeah.
to Davin
There, so he may still show up.
Shimon?
Yeah. In Eretz Yisrael. Okay. Right. Okay. All right. So as we go through the, don't expect the quality of shiur that Reb Shimon gives. Okay. Okay. I want to just point out in the previous Gemara, okay, we have seen a number of items that are significant, okay, in terms of question of who is responsible. I'll put it that way. When there is a confrontation, okay, of some kind, right? And the Gemara continues, the new Mishnah is going to continue that kind of discussion, and it's going to bring in 2 or 3 main motifs, I'll call them. Okay, one is the question, the issue of, does warning have a significant role in terms of the situation? That's one example, right? Okay, a second example, okay, is going to be the question of, is the issue of tircha, okay, is that going to be something that might prohibit the the person from warning,
Not prohibit, but
inhibit,
inhibit.
okay, from warning, okay, and therefore, as a result of that,
The very first question is the guy a whore or is
well,
he
well,
a
well,
dope?
we won't get there yet. Okay, so will that issue of tircha also be something that inhibits him from giving a warning?
What's an example of that?
We're going to see in the Gemara. Okay, so I just want us to be aware of the fact that the Gemara is going to raise these kinds of issues. All right, as we go through. Okay, so we're on Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. Okay, Matnitin says our Mishnah, Shnei Kedarim. We have two individuals who are potters. They make earthenware utensils. Okay, and what happens, right? Shahayu mahalchin ze achar ze, and they were walking one behind the other. V'nitkal harishon, and the first one trips. Okay, v'nafal, and he falls. Remember, by the way, that it was Rabbi Meir who held that nitkal poshea, that somebody who stumbles is basically negligent, okay, and therefore, as a result, he would hold that that person would be chayav for all nezek, all damages, all right? So we got to keep that thought in mind, right? We'll come back to it momentarily, but we go on now. So what happens? So potter A trips, falls, and on the crashes on the ground, and he's lying on the roadway or on the Rishus Harabim, as was all of his shards of his pottery. Okay, so that's our image. V'nitkal hasheni barishon, and the second potter, potter B, trips over as well. Not okay. It appears that he trips over potter A. We're going to have to see that the Gemara, okay, is they had a minion all right there.
Yeah, just.
Okay, and we're going to see that the Gemara is going to actually have to come back to this issue, okay, of how is it possible that potter B could have tripped over potter A? Did he trip over the body? Did he trip over the shards? Things like that. Okay. Well, we'll see. The Gemara has to deal with that. Okay, but I don't want to, right? But in any case, potter B has tripped over potter A in some manner, says our Mishnah. Harishon chayav b'nizkei sheni. Okay, that the potter A is liable regarding the damages to potter B. Okay, now, okay, well, I'm not going to go that far yet, but we don't know, okay? Remember also that may be true if we hold like Rabbi Meir. If we hold like Rabbanim, we're going to say no. He's only chayav in terms of any nizkei for the body, but not for any damage to the property of potter B.
If he's a bore.
Okay, well, we're going to get there. Hold on. We're going to get there. Okay, we're going to get to that in a second. Okay? No. Okay. All right. So what happens? Let's go now into our Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. We're going to see that the Gemara is going to present now, okay, a back and forth as to how to understand our Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Lo tema matnitin Rabbi Meir here. Don't say, Kashi, here's your point. Don't say automatically, I'm footing in, that our Mishnah is according to Rabbi Meir, okay? Because Rabbi Meir said nitkal poshea, and therefore would be subject to liability for all damages. All right? Why? Gemara reminds us what was Rabbi Meir's position. The Amar nitkal posheahu, because Rabbi Meir said one who stumbles is considered negligent and therefore v'chayav. and therefore obligated, liable to pay all damages. Okay? Ela afilu l'Rabbanan. But perhaps, says Rabbi Yochanan, we can hold at our Mishnah. Okay, and why do we have to present this? Because remember, this appears to be a Stam Mishnah, and we always hold Stam Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. In fact, it's Rabbi Yochanan himself who was the one who made that principle. So now he comes back to tell us, hold on a second. In this case, we can't hold that principle.
No, you can't do, but it's
We
not
might.
only
We might have thought that was the case. But I'm going to tell you, says Rabbi Yochanan, Ela afilu l'Rabbanan. But we may hold here that our Mishnah could be according to Rabbanan. Why? What do they hold? The Amre Anus Hu Patur. Because we say maybe it was basically an accident, right? And he should be exempt. Potter A. Okay? Right? So the Gemara continues. Hacha chayav, right? Why, says the Gemara, challenging Rabbi Yochanan's statement. Here we might say that the Potter A would be liable. Why? Shahayalo la'amod v'lo amad. Because he should have had the time or the presence of mind to get up, and he didn't get up. Rav Nachman now, however, contributes to the discussion. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Amar, he gives a clarification, or maybe a challenge to Rabbi Yochanan. Afilu tema lo haya lo la'amod. You might say that the first parter should still be considered liable, okay, even if he did not get up. Okay, hayalo la. All right, why? Because were he not even able to get up, hayalo lahaz here, he should have had the ability to give a warning. Below his here, and he did not give any warning. So the implication here would seem to be, at least according to Rav Nachman, that giving a warning, okay, is at least an opportunity, an occasion where it overcomes the problem, and therefore that person who should not be held liable. Ted.
Warning implies that there's something that made him stumble.
Not necessarily.
You break down, you put the.
I don't know. That I don't know. Maybe the fact that he simply, okay, all I'm saying is that you give a warning. We don't know if he's warning about the ground is
He warns
what?
people to look where
Okay,
they're going.
or he yells at them, I can't get up.
Help
Okay.
me, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Or whatever. Okay, so what happens? Now we come back to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan responds to Rav Nachman's point. Kevan de lo hayalo la'amod, lo hayalo lahazhir de tarid. Rabbi Yochanan says, okay, he was not even able to give a warning. Why wasn't he able to get up? Because he was preoccupied, either with trying to get up or trying to gather his potsherds or whatever. But he was tarid. And so therefore Rabbi Yochanan holds differently than Rav Nachman. But we're going to see the Gemara is bothered by the fact of what Rabbi Yochanan has said and continues. What? He's preoccupied. Okay? Tnan. And therefore we have a Mishnah that seems to tell us the following. Maybe from here we can clarify whether we want to hold, accept simply Rav Nachman's view that warning does override any problem, or maybe we're going to say no, okay, even in this case, okay, Rabbi Yochanan might be correct. Let's see. Haya ba'al korah rishon, u'ba'al chavit acharon. We have now a different situation where the first person carrying a beam, okay, a large piece of wood is walking first, u'ba'al chavit, and a second person carrying a large barrel is walking behind him. Right? What happens? Nishbara chavit bekora. And the barrel becomes broken as a result of the beam. Okay? Who is responsible? All right? Says this Mishnah, okay? Patur, that the one carrying the beam seems to be exempt from liability. Okay? Now, why is that the case as we go on? Says this, what I'm going to call this Braita, really. V'im amad ba'al korah. If the carrier of the beam simply had just stood there, chayav, it would seem to be that he would be liable, right? My love, aren't we going to say sha'amad the katef? Maybe it's possible that we're going to say that the reason he suddenly stopped was to simply the katef, to change the beam from one shoulder to another, which is really a normal activity, okay, and reasonable, okay, in that situation. So why then, if it was a reasonable action, should we hold him to be liable? All right? And that's what the Gemara tells us. Do'archehu, because that's a normal activity. Ukatani chayav. But nevertheless, our Braita, our first Braita here, is teaching that he is liable. Dahava le lahaz here. Why? Because he should have warned him. And therefore, at this point, we seem to see that Rav Nachman's view that a warning does override any issue of. Now let's go on with the Gemara, and we'll see. Maybe the Gemara is going to raise that question. Why didn't the guy carrying the barrel slow down? Okay.
Because he didn't, this guy stopped short.
Well, we'll see. He could be. Okay, what happens? No, said the Gemara. Okay, it wasn't that he did something that was normally appropriate, simply shifting the weight. What did he do? Kashe'amad lafush. He stopped to rest. There's the problem. If he wanted to rest, he should have gone to the side of the Rishus Harabi and not the rest area. Exactly, not in the middle of the road. Okay? So that's why we might argue, and therefore we say that overrides Rav Nachman's view about warning. Okay? So again, since he did something that was not ordinary, that's again follows that, therefore, that's why we say he should be liable. Okay? Aval, right? So the Gemara says, but wait a minute. Aval amad the katef. But let's say he stopped, okay? In order to do something normal, to shift the weight on the shoulders, what's the statute? What would we infer from that? Patur, that therefore he should be exempt. So the Gemara then continues. Okay, so that still is a challenge to Rav Nachman. So first we accept Rav Nachman's view that warning is good. Now we challenge his view. Adatani seifa ve'imamarlo lebaal chavit amod patur. That would then tell us that at the end of the Mishnah, or really the end of our Braita, tells us, had he said to the carrier of the barrel to stop, he would have been exempt. So wait a second, says the Gemara. Liflog, okay, separate it. In other words, redefine it and teach it in a different manner. Our language should be different. Velitni bidida, but teach it according to the following method. B'medvarim amorim, what are we talking about? Kashe'amad lafush. Okay, we're talking about a situation where he basically stopped to rest. Aval amad lekatev patur. But in other words, phrase our Braita that way. Then we would understand that he would only be chayav if he had stopped simply to rest suddenly in the middle of the road. But if he had stopped in a normal manner, then he would have been exempt. Ha kamashmala. Here it therefore comes to teach us the afal gav the amad lafush that despite the fact that he stopped to rest, ki amar lo lebal chavit amod, had he said to the carrier of the barrel, stop, stand still, patur, then he would be exempt. Okay. Now we go on, because now if we haven't proved it based on this Breita, we're going to bring another Breita to try to give proof as to whether it's Rav Nachman's view of warning has the better value or not. Let's see. Tashma, says the Gemara, with a new example. Hakod, right? Hakadarin v'hazagavin. Okay, we have two again. We have potters walking, and then we have glass shears walking behind them. Shahayu mahalchin ze achar ze, that they were walking one behind the other. Nitkal harishon, the potters tripped up, right, and fell. V'nafal, right. V'nitkal hasheni berishon, and again now the glass shears tripped over the potters that were there, right? Okay, and what happened? Vashlishi, b'sheni, and the third person in the row tripped over the second. Says our writer here, Rishon chayav b'niskei sheni, that the first person, okay, the first potter, is responsible in the damages for the second person, the first glacier. V'sheni chayav b'niskei shlishi, and the second person, let's call that this glacier number one, is responsible for damages to glacier number two. Okay, who's the third person? Ve'im mechemat rishon naflu, and were it such that it was due to the fact that the first person fell, says the Gemara, like actually our Breita, rishon chayav b'niskei kulam, then that first person, that original potter, the first person in the row of three, he should be responsible, liable for all three of them, right? Okay, all right. Well, we'll see. Okay. In other words, he's really responsible not for, he's responsible for the damages to the people that were behind him. Okay, the second person and the third person. Okay, all right. Okay. As we continue, by the way, all right, v'im his hiru zeh et zeh keturin, but if he warned this one and this one, he would be exempt. That comes back to tell us Rav Nachman's view seems to be appropriate, that warning is sufficient not to make one liable, right? My love, isn't this a situation as follows? Shelo haya lehen zman, I'm going to read into the text, la'amod, that they didn't have time to get up, all right? So that was Rabbi Yochanan's answer. Okay, that was possible Rabbi Yochanan's answer, but remember Rabbi Yochanan had a second answer, which was tarid, okay, that the person was preoccupied, right? I'm bringing both of these up because Rishonim and the Rashi and Tosfot have a big argument how to interpret the rest of the Gemara, okay? And there are two shitas, one that's based on Rabbi Hananel, okay, and one that's based on this issue of Rashi and Tosafot. Okay, so what happens? So what's the situation here? We're still now not clear whether Rav Nachman's view of warning is the strongest argument and therefore will remove liability, or whether Rabbi Yochanan's view of did they have time to get up and they didn't, does that what makes them liable? Or do we say that if they had warned them, okay, whatever. I mean, not warned them, but being preoccupied, okay, allows them to get away, allows them not to, an excuse, let's put it that way, for the issue of warning. Okay? Right, right? So what happens?
Well, this question is what the guy tripped on.
Right, so let's go on. Lo, says the Gemara, right? Shahaya lahem la'amod, aval lo haya lahem la'amod. That's a situation. Lo shahaya. No, it wasn't that they had time to get up. Aval lo haya lahem la'amod. My. But if they didn't have the time, okay,
Yeah.
Not the way you understood it before, low.
right?
but
They didn't have time.
They do
That's
have
right.
time and
That's
did.
why the-
But they didn't get,
Yeah,
but they
and were
didn't get
able,
up.
they didn't break the
So
law.
that's the case. Our question is patur. Should they therefore be no longer liable? Hachi, if that's the case. Adatani sefer. Okay, as we learned in the end, im his hiru ze et ze patur. But the end of it said that if they did warn one another,
And it's
they
not-
should be exempt. So the Gemara then raises the question again, one more time. Liflog v'litnei b'dida. So separate the situations and clarify it by language in a better way. Namely, b'medvarim amurim. How do we understand this? Shahaya lahem la'amod, that they should have gotten up, as what Rabbi Yochanan initially told us, right? Aval lo haya lahem la'amod, but were it not that they weren't able to get up, right? Keturin, they would be exempt. Hakamash malan. Therefore, it comes to teach us the afal gav dahaya lehen la'amod, that even though they had the opportunity or the time to get up, ki his hiru zeh, were it such that they were able to warn them, excuse me, keturin,
because
then
they're
they would be
transferring,
exempt.
because now the guy is Poshea who doesn't listen.
Well, we'll see. That's one consideration. That's one option. Okay, that's where the machloket comes up. Okay, whether he's really a poshea or not poshea, what kind of a poshea, things like that. Anyway, so let's go on. Now Rava is going to come and try to give us a further explanation to clarify the scenario. Okay, Amar Rava, he says, Rishon chayav b'niskei sheni. Our Braita here tells us that the first person, okay, is responsible for the damages to the second. Bein beniskei gufo, bein beniskei mamono, whether it's damage done to his person or damage done to his property. Sheni chayav beniskei shlishi, beniskei gufo, that the second person is responsible for damages to the second, to the third person's person, avalo b'niskei mamono, but not to any damages done to his property. This is Rava's suggestion.
Because he becomes a boor.
Wait, don't jump ahead. Don't jump ahead. Okay, please. Okay, mimanavsha. Okay, so either way, says the Gemara. Hold on a second. Why is Rava trying to come up with this explanation to say that the first one is responsible for all kinds of nezikin, but the second one is only responsible for nezikin for the body, but not for property? Okay, let's see. Because, says the Gemara, init kal posheahu. If he stumbled, then I might take Rabbi Meir's view, okay, and say stumbling means poshea, he's negligent. Okay, first guy.
Yeah.
All right. Sheni nami lechai. If we're holding by that principle, that nitkal posheahu, Rabbi Meir's explanation, then not only should the first person be responsible for everything, the second should also be responsible for everything. Sheni nami l'chaim. Nitkal lav posheahu. If we hold the way Rabbanan held, okay, that's anus, that it's an accident. Okay, afilu rishon nami lo lipter. Then even the first one also should not be. Okay,
Nobody.
he's also nami lipater, should be
also
allowed,
be exempt.
should be exempt.
Yeah.
Okay, in other words, not responsible for either bodily or property damage. Okay, what happens? Let's go on now to the next okay. All right, this is where, by the way, it gets a little more complicated.
One and hold any way that the first guy would be Hoshea in any.
Good question.
What was his question?
Heshi's question is, does Rabbanan hold in any way that the second person,
The first one never.
The first person.
does the Rabbanan ever hold that Nitkal is Poshea? Okay, that's his question. According to one of the texts
if
that I,
he doesn't move out of the way,
okay, well, we'll
or
get to
warn
it.
people behind
Okay,
him,
well, that
then
depends.
that's a
That
Pashia.
depends on whether you hold like Rabbi Yochanan or Rabbi Nachman. If
He
you
could
hold like
by
Rabbi
either.
Nachman and you hold that a warning is
The
enough,
point was that
That's the
even
point.
the Rabbanan who consider tripping and falling an innocent act, they would say that in the 5 seconds or 5 minutes following the trip, the guy either should have crawled out of the way or should have put a red flare so people
Well,
go around.
that's the question of that's the issue of whether you hold like Rabbi Nachman.
Yeah, but
or
even if
Rabbi
they
Yochanan.
don't say Pshia on the fall, they say Pshia on the aftermath. That's the
Well,
point.
we didn't get there yet. That's the difference
That's
between
all
the.
linked to the
that-
fall.
Well, he
that's-
did. That's what Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi
But
Nachman.
it's all linked to
That's
the
what
fall
the
anyway.
argument between Rabbi Hananel and others.
It's a linkage.
Okay, that's the issue. All right, that's why we're not going into that
Moral of
yet.
the tale is the break
Wait.
lights work.
Okay, oh nitkal lav posheu. Okay, afilu rishon nami lipoter. Let's go on now to Amud Bey. Rishon vadai posheu. So they're now trying to clarify Rava's statement. Clearly, Rava would appear that he must hold, perhaps like Rabbi Meir, that the first one is negligent. Okay,
One way
all right, in one, okay. Sheni, okay, as far as the second, agufo mechaye, for damages to the person he would be obligated. Dahava leila amon. Why? Because trying to explain Rabbah, he says, oh, no, I'll say like Rabbi Yochanan, okay, initially, that he should have been able to get up. Okay? Velo amad. But he didn't get up. That's why at least he has to be held responsible, the second person, for nezek to the person. Okay? As far as amamono, but as far as any damages for the property, patur, he would be exempt. Okay? Da amarle, what? Oh, we're gonna get to it in a second. Da amarle, why? Because he could say to the third fellow, okay, hi bira lav anakarite. I did not dig this pit here in this location. He says, in other words,
It's a metaphor for my
basically what he's saying to him is the second person, okay, did not cause the damage through his body, because we say ish is always, right? A person's body is always mu'ad, but he's saying, no, it's more like I'm like simply an obstacle in the public domain. And we always hold that a obstacle in the public domain only applies to an animal, but doesn't apply to kalim. And that's why it would be patur. So if he's simply a bore, an obstacle there, okay, that's why he would not be considered liable for those utensils.
It was the first guy that made him a bore.
Okay.
He didn't make himself.
All right. So what happened? So right, obstacle, right? Okay. So what happens? Now we have the problem. Is this what really Rava was trying to tell us in this situation? Meitive. So we have a challenge to this explanation of Rava, right? In terms of Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, and what are they going to bring as a challenge? A second bright. Kulan, all of them. Okay, chayavin al miske gufan. they're all liable for bodily damage, upaturin al miskei mamonam, but they are all exempt in regarding to any damage to property. Okay, this seems to be a mark the difference.
Well, this means you accept the number one.
Okay, than what our earlier Breita said. Okay, this Breita. Number one, it may indicate, okay, a situation that of something we have to bring in, which is brand new and which is okay. Maybe it's possible that when somebody fell, okay, what did they do? They have all these potsherds. They made them hefker. Therefore, once they're hefker, they're no longer responsible. Okay, so that's another element that comes here in the possibility of what could have happened. Okay,
It's impossible to make it after in 2 seconds.
not
That's also a
necessarily,
machlokes.
but that's part of the whole machlokus, whether that's even a viable viable explanation. My love, okay. In other words, how then are we going to have the fact that we've got this bright that's totally different from what we saw Rava's explanation of the previous bright? Okay, my love is not afilu rishon. Are we saying then that even the first person
You
then,
said the word kulan.
okay, could be different, different from the responsibility on the property? No, levar marisha. No, we're excluding the first person. Okay, vaha kulam katani. But this second Braita taught all of them. Okay, which would seem to include the first person. Amar Rav Adabar comes to the rescue. He says as follows: Kulan hanizakin. Now we're talking about here,
Everyone who was
Everyone.
damaged.
okay, all the damages, those that were damaged, namely that excludes the
Two,
first
three,
one,
four,
and it talks about the second and the third one, people. Okay, all right, so what happens? Hi, my. So then what is our result? Asks the Gemara. I amart b'shlema afilu rishon. If you're going to say that's appropriate in regarding to the first person, hainu de katani kulan, then we still have an issue because this second Braita taught all of them. Ella iamart levar marishon. But if you're going to say to the exception of the first one, okay, and we're only applying it to the second two, okay, my kulan. What does this second Braita have to say? The language, all of them. Again, litni hanizkin. Let it teach instead, okay, those that were damaged.
Those
Okay,
who were hurt.
right, right. Ella, rather. So now what we have to do is come back with it. Always Ella tells us, right? Come back with an alternative explanation. So that's what we've got to do, is we've got to go back to Rava's explanation of the first Mishnah, okay, and the first Braita, I'm sorry, and therefore come with the following.
Where does it say that he made the shard step there?
It doesn't.
It's
That's the
going to-
question. That's
If
the
he made
question.
it up there, he
Oh.
would have had enough time.
To get up? We don't know. We don't know. Ela Amar Rav. So maybe let's understand Rava's explanation this way. Rishon Chayav. The first one is liable. Bain benezek gufo desheni. Bain benezek mamono desheni. Okay? So this is, of course, a challenge to Rava. Okay,
No,
by
this is
reinterpreting
Rava's
it.
explaining Rava.
Rava's a challenge to
This
the
isn't a
first.
challenge, it's an explanation.
Okay, all right, to the first explanation of Rava. It's still a challenge. Okay, because you're getting an alternative explanation. Okay, he is going to say this is what he means. Okay, he is responsible, liable, whether for the damage to the person of the second, or to the damage to the property, excuse me, of the second. V'sheni, chayav b'niskei shlishi, and the second person, okay, that was the first glacier, okay, is liable to the damage to the third person, b'niskei gufo, to the damages for his person, aval lo b'niskei mamono, but not for any damage done to his property. Okay, my tama, what would be the reasoning here? Okay, first possible explanation, dahave lebor, because the second person we're comparing to a obstacle in the public domain, and therefore we've said velo matzinu bor shechayav bo et hakelim, and we don't find any example where we say an obstacle in the public domain is liable for destruction of property. We learned that the other day. Okay, so it's just reminding us of that principle. Okay, so that's why we would say that in this alternative explanation of Rabbah, that the second person is only responsible for the person, damages to person of the third guy, and not damages to the property. Okay, now we go on. Gemara, however, wants to comment and clarify. Shmuel. That's acceptable according to the view of Shmuel. Why? The Amar called Tikala Bor. Why? Because Shmuel holds that any kind of obstruction there in the public domain is considered like an obstacle, like bor. Okay, and therefore it does not apply to kalim, to utensils. Ela Rav, but according to Rav, Da'amar I afkire, who says no, that's only true if the owner made that stuff hefker. Okay, then, okay, yes, there in that situation, we could say he would not be responsible for the kalim. Okay, right? Elo, but if the person did not make the shards, okay, hefker, lo, okay, and therefore would be responsible.
Because he's still another.
Okay, because it would be like what would happen? Okay, he had fell on the body of the person, and therefore that would be ish, and we said ish is mu'ad and responsible for always for all nizakin, regardless if it's both goof or it's mamo. Okay, my ikalamema. So what do we have to say here? Le'olam kid'amar me'ikara. No, we must go back to our original understanding, our original pshat of the text, okay, as follows. Udekashalach. But therefore we fact that it was problematic for us because our second braita said kulan, chayavin, that issue. How do we then relate and work it so that the second braita and the earlier braita are not in contradiction? Tirgama Rav Adabar Minyome, Kame de Ravina. So Rav Adabar Minyome explained it before Ravina as follows: Shehusku Kalim Bekalim. Okay, that it wasn't the second person's body that caused the damage. It was the property of the second person. That's what caused the damage to the property of the third person. That was the case. Okay, now we go on. Amar Mar. Now we come back to what we said earlier. Im mechamat rishon naflu. If it was because of the first person that they fell. Rishon chayav b'niskei kulam. That would seem to indicate that first person, excuse me, should be liable for any all damages to both of them.
both 1, 2, and 3.
Right. In other words, to number 2 and number 3, damage is both for person and for
okay.
property. Okay. Mechamat Rishon, Hechi Nafil. Okay. But from the fact that we say that the first person, how is it that they found? Rav
Since
Papa.
2 crashed into
Wait,
one,
wait, wait, wait,
how
wait, wait,
could
wait, wait,
3 have
Okay, wait,
crashed
wait, wait,
into
wait.
one? 2 is
So we
in the
see
way.
here, how is it, why is it such that 2 fell over 3? Okay. No, I'm sorry, 2 fell over 1.
And 3
Huh.
also.
Whoa, wait,
fell.
we'll get there. We'll get there, Michael. Slow down. Okay. All right. And we know that number 3 fell over number 2, but we want to ask first, how is it that 2 fell over number 1? Rav Papa Amar says, Rav Papa, what happened? The paske lo orche kishilda, that his body was stretched across the Rishus Harabim almost like a skeleton. The whole body lay there.
So both
Okay.
2 and 3.
Right. So
crashed
wait,
on
wait.
one.
So it meant that it's possible that number 2 was walking and he tripped over one part of the body of number 1, and number 3 actually did trip over number 1, but over by a different part of the body. Okay, so then that case, number 1 would be liable both for all damages, both for number 2 and for number 3.
Why isn't number 1 considered a door?
He's not,
What?
because we started off by saying if you held like Rabbi Meir, Nitkal Poshea, it was negligence. If, on the other hand, we hold like the rabbis, it's nos.
No, wait a minute. Adam is a category of its own. Adam is always muad and
We said
always
that,
has to pay.
right?
It's a special circumstance that in this strange case, number 1 did something to cause number 2 to damage. So that's an exception to the rule, according to Shmuel, that number 2 is aimed for, is sort of like
No,
a
I
door.
wouldn't go
Not
there.
number 1.
I wouldn't go
But
there.
not number 1, because number 1 was negligent.
We don't know
and
that.
Adam is always
I wouldn't
muad.
go with that explanation. I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, so what happened? So what happened? So Rav Papa says one possibility is that number 1 was totally stretched across the Rishus Harabim. Okay, and that both 2 and 3 tripped over that body. However, Rav Zavid wants to give an alternative. Okay, he gives now. What happens? He says, "Kechutra de samyuta." Why? Because it's like the staff of a blind person, that the cane moves from side to side, okay, when he's walking. And therefore, when moving side to side, one could have tripped from
when he fell.
No. Okay. One he could have.
Side when he's lying on the ground.
No, he's just giving a different. How you're going to go back? I'll come back. Okay, that one could have tripped in one place, one could have tripped in the other place. Now, this is where Rav Hananiel disagrees. Okay, his argument is that there's a machloket between Rav Papa and Rav Zavi in terms of whether that first person, how you could say that they're the cause of both of 2 and 3 falling. Okay, others don't say it. Say it's just an alternative. Okay, but the implication clear here is now you've worked back to the point of how we understood that the second Breita can be adjusted to agree with the first Breita.
Stop there because the next Mishnah keeps going.
Well, I want to do the Mishnah. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna have to do it tomorrow anyway.
I know, but that's okay.
So why do you
Okay. All right. Michael's going to do it tomorrow. Okay. So now I want to just finish up. Okay. So the part of the argument is on this issue of Poshea. Okay. Do you take it simply like Rabbi Meir did? Okay. As back to the original explanation. Or do you say that if one has time to get up, like Rabbi Yochanan says, okay, therefore it's not the same as Poshea, right? And it's a different situation. And that's where we got into the argument about Rav Nachman saying, no, even if he wasn't able to get up but warned, it would still be sufficient. Okay. All right, I'm going to just quickly go through the Mishnah to get us ready for tomorrow. Zeba b'chavito. This one is carrying a barrel. V'zeba b'korato. And another one is carrying a beam. Nishbara kado shozeh b'korato shozeh. Okay.
One's going north, one's
Oh,
going
oh,
south.
oh, oh, don't even say that yet.
Who's going first?
Okay, I'll wait tomorrow to say.
Because not everybody holds that way.
Right.
Not everybody's going to say that's the case. Okay? All I'm presenting, one is carrying a barrel, one is carrying a beam.
Who's first?
We don't know that yet. We don't know that yet.
Okay, go.
Okay? Nishbara kado shel zeh b'korato shel zeh. Okay? The barrel gets broken by the beam. According to this part of the Mishnah, patur. The one carrying the beam is not liable. Shelazeh reshut lahalach, ulazeh reshut lahalach. Because this one has permission to go, and this one has permission to go. So that might indicate, as Michael was hinting at, okay, and we'll explain further tomorrow, that one was going one direction, one was going another direction. It might.
Well, if you don't say that, then it's the same as the previous case. And
Right.
this Mishnah has
Well,
two
we'll see.
stories.
Haya ba'al hakore rishon, were it such. Okay. In other words, does this really tell us that they were coming to an intersection? Okay. Haya ba'al hakore rishon, were it such that the owner of the beam came first, ubal chavit acharon, and the owner of the cask
What's left?
barrel
Seven.
came later. Nishbara chavit, that's when the barrel broke. Bikora patur baal hakora, okay, and was broken with the beam. Then the owner of the beam would be exempt. Okay, just going over. V'im amad baal kora, but were it such that the owner of the beam stood still, chayav, he would be liable. V'im amar lebal chavit amod, and were he to have said to the owner of the casket barrel, stand, patur, he would be, the inference would be, he would seem to be exempt. And just to finish up the Mishnah, haya ba'al chavit rishon, were it such that the owner of the barrel was first, uba'al korah acharon, and the owner of the beam was afterwards or later, nishbara chavit b'korah, that then the barrel got broken by the beam, chayav, he would be liable. Ve'im amad ba'al chavit patur, and if the owner of the barrel had stopped, he would be exempt. Ve'im amar leba'al korah amod, and were it such that he had said to the owner of the beam, stop, chayav, he would be obligated. V'chein ze ba b'neiro v'ze b'peshtano. And likewise, it would be similar in the situation if somebody was carrying a lamp and somebody was carrying flax. Okay, so tomorrow we'll go into this Mishnah and see to what degree could it be similar or totally different than the previous Mishnah that we had today.
Oh, yeah. Very,
Okay.
very clear.
Staya.
Okay.
So by the end of the week, I need the second favor. Friday.
Right, right. Interesting enough, one of the shiurim I listened to said in the Yerushalmi, there is a much more detailed discussion
Of this story.
and implies clearly the whole example of the necessity, as we would understand today, for having
Taillights.
taillights or having, okay,
You ever see roller derby?
No.
Same thing as roller derby.
No. No, roller derby, they're paid to hurt each other, and they all sign waivers.